quelques jours que les joueurs cultivant un amour certain pour les comics pourront s'essayer à Injustice, Gods Among Us, une nouvelle franchise de jeux de baston mettant en scène les héros les plus connus de l'univers d'ici. Ayant fait l'objet d'un tease à l'E3 dernier, ce titre développé par NetherRealm Studios, à qui l'on doit les derniers Mortal Kombat, se pointe avec une histoire originale et un setup assez surprenant. Pour faire court, Superman pète un câble à la suite d'un événement tragique. Il revient alors aux autres héros de DC de l'arrêter coûte que coûte. Une configuration qui a donc amené le studio américain à collaborer avec les différents auteurs DC, comme nous l'explique Hector Sanchez, le producteur d'Injustice.
DC's been nothing but open with all of the ideas that we've had since the beginning. Since we kind of told them exactly what we wanted to do with the universe, they were like, go ahead, go through it. From the very first concept art that we sent them of Evil Superman to, the latest final build that we just sent them, last week. They've approved everything that we've wanted to do, and they've even gone so far as to develop an entire comic line based around our storyline as well. So the Injustice universe is its own kind of separate universe outside of anything else that DC has ever done, which allows us to have more creativity with the characters. Then, it's not the Kingdom Come Superman, it's not Darkest Night Batman, it's Injustice Batman and Injustice Superman. So in the context of that universe, all of this makes sense. The most that they've given us were kind of like massaging the dialogue of the characters themselves. So we had Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, who are two the more well-known DC authors, and we sent them the script and they sent us back notes on like, hey, Superman would never say that, or Flash would never say something or do something like that. So they definitely gave us tips so that it would make sense in the context of the whole DC universe. But as I said, all gloves were off and we were able to do whatever it is that we wanted to do with the universe, which I think is going to make this a very unique experience for a lot of DC fans to see these characters in ways that they're not used to seeing them before. It's very, very cool.
Concevoir un jeu de baston avec un roster aussi éclectique a dû demander une certaine réflexion pour conserver un équilibre entre les personnages. En temps normal, on imagine par exemple mal le Joker mettre à l'amende quelqu'un comme Wonder Woman. Les développeurs ont donc dû trouver un twist dans leur histoire et faire des choix concernant la puissance des pouvoirs de chacun.
What we did is that we took away the overpoweredness of each character. If it was a real fight, obviously Superman could throw one punch and then the fight would be over, but nobody would want to play that game, right? So we had to make sure that we balanced the characters in a way that made sense, especially when it came to the fighting game element of it. The eye laser can do just as much damage as an explosive batarang and things of that sort. So there is a little suspension of disbelief that we're expecting from the player to get. To have once they kind of play the game in and of itself, but we kind of define that in the context of the story. So when you play the story, you'll see why Superman's powers are reduced and why Catwoman's powers have been increased. So it'll all make sense in a greater context when it's looked at collectively. The most challenging aspect of the development process was making sure that all the characters were balanced across the game. In fighting games, there's always that fear of you're making one character who is kind of quote-unquote broken, right? The overpowered character. Every fighting game has it, that one character, when somebody picks them, you just roll your eyes. You're like, oh, really, dude? Like, you're gonna pick that person? We really wanted to avoid that in Injustice, so we had to spend a lot of time making sure every character had the tools to fight against every other type of character as well. And, inevitably, when the game is released to the fans and you have millions of people playing, somebody's going to find that one cheap exploit, and attack it. But, we have systems in place right now that if that starts to happen, we can tweak the numbers a little bit and kind of balance it down.
Outre les combos et les attaques spéciales, Injustice propose d'autres manières de rudoyer ses adversaires. Et c'est là qu'entre en jeu l'interactivité avec le décor.
The interactive objects in the backgrounds are something that are very cool for us to kind of develop. This was something that Ed Boon, wanted us to really focus on and kind of put in the game. Is we have these superheroes fighting in the streets of Metropolis, of Atlantis, and Arkham Asylum, and all these different places. But we didn't want it to just be a pretty picture in the background that you're fighting in front of. We wanted them to actually have life and be part of a match in and of itself. So in Arkham, you can kind of like lift the TV monitors and throw them at your opponent. You can slam people into the gurney. You can transition them and you go down into the kitchen of Arkham Asylum and throw a hanging pig at your opponent, or pick up the stove and slam it into them. There's all kinds of different ways that you can come up with different kind of interactive elements in each one of the backgrounds, and it makes sense, right? There's these big kind of like superhero fights. It's not just going to be, you know, just one-on-one. They're going to look around and they're going to use whatever kind of objects are available to them. So it was really cool to kind of come up with those ideas, and it allowed us even more creativities, because not only were we developing special moves for each one of the characters, now we were developing special moves for the arenas in and of themselves. So it's almost like the arenas were separate characters in addition to the characters that we already have. So I think people are going to be really into it, and they're going to find creative ways to incorporate the interactive objects into their gameplay, because they're not all the same. They're not all just throw this TV at this person. They're also, I can use a laser in the Fortress of Solitude and send you into the Phantom Zone, and when you come back out, it pops you up, and now I can get a free juggle combo. There's all kinds of different things. I can, in Themyscira, I can pull on the chains and a big flame will come out and kind of set you on fire. You're taking damage and you're stunned, so now I get a free combo after that. There's just different things across all of the backgrounds that are going to make it feel like a different fight every time you play the game, depending on what character you picked as well.
Malgré cette volonté d'installer une nouvelle franchise avec de nouvelles mécaniques de gameplay, on remarque dès le premier coup d'œil que cette Injustice a été créée par les développeurs des derniers Mortal Kombat sur console HD. On peut alors se demander dans quelle mesure leurs travaux précédents ont aidé l'équipe à développer ce nouveau titre.
One of the first things that we were able to do is kind of change the layout of the game in and of itself. Because we were making an Injustice game and not a Mortal Kombat game, we were able to change things that if we tried to change those in Mortal Kombat, people would say, what are you doing? You're taking it too far. There's an expectation that comes with Mortal Kombat. With Injustice, because it's a brand new property, we were able to do whatever we wanted to. So we changed certain things. There's no longer a block button. Now you hold back to block like more traditional Eastern developed games. You know, the walk speed is a little bit faster. There's only 3 attack buttons instead of 4 attack buttons. You know, in Mortal Kombat we had front punch, front kick, and rear click. Now we just have light, medium, hard attacks, and we reserve the 4th button for what we're calling the character power button. So the character power button is kind of like an additional special move that every character has. For Superman, you hit that button and for a limited amount of time he does even more damage. Not that he needs it, but he gets even stronger. Batman calls in these robotic bats that kind of surround him, and it uses them as defense, and he can also fire them as a projectile. So there's all kinds of different things that we can do with it that makes Injustice feel fresh and different, and not just kind of like a reskin or a clone of Mortal Kombat. It's its own kind of like IP, its own kind of franchise, its own kind of feel.
Prévu pour le 19 avril prochain, on attend maintenant de passer un peu de temps sur cette Injustice, en espérant que l'on n'ait pas affaire à la rigidité et au système de combo un peu laborieux propre au Mortal Kombat, mais bel et bien un système de combat repensé et cohérent avec l'univers qu'il traite. Quoi qu'il en soit, on vous invite à suivre la critique d'Injustice, diffusée incessamment sous peu dans 100%.